Thank you for joining us today. The Department of Homeland Security is responsible for a number of critical missions that safeguard our nation, from preventing terrorism to cyber attacks to securing our northern as well as southern borders and, of course, responding to natural disasters. I am disappointed in a disappointing departure from prior administrations, including President Trump's first administration. We are holding today's hearing to discuss the department's budget needs without having received a detailed budget request from the president or a briefing from the department's components about their budget needs. However, we have seen in just a few short months under the Trump administration how the department has undergone tremendous changes. I have serious concerns that some of these changes are harming rather than helping the department in its mission to protect the safety and the security of all Americans. For example, as we head into hurricane season and the wildfire season, the administration has halted critical FEMA programs that support flood mitigation and slashed staff who focus on disaster relief. These are critical resources for states in the aftermath of a natural disaster, and the administration has provided little or no justification for these changes. FEMA has even internally acknowledged that it is not ready for hurricane season, which starts in just 11 days. And despite that, the administration is still planning on shifting the burden for disaster response to state and local governments, which will put Americans at grave risk the next time disaster strikes, which is inevitable. Similarly, at a time when we are facing increasing threats from cyber attacks, the administration plans to drastically cut our nation's primary cybersecurity agency, CISA. CISA is supposed to be finalizing a rule required by law that this committee passed to improve cyber incident reporting to better protect our critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. Yet, reporting indicates that 700 CISA employees have taken deferred resignation under pressure from this administration. CISA's work on election security has stopped, and the agency's advisory committees have been shuttered. These actions make us less prepared to address cybersecurity attacks. The administration also proposes cutting $247 million from the Transportation Security Administration's budget to reduce the number of frontline TSA agents. At a time when air travel is at an all-time high, and we are entering the busy summer travel season, these cuts only threaten to make our skies and the flying travelers less secure. At the same time, the administration has also cut congressionally mandated oversight offices that protect the civil rights and civil liberties of individuals who interact with DHS components. These offices were put in place to ensure that DHS personnel can conduct their important national security missions effectively, while safeguarding the rights of the people in this country. Shutting these offices down not only puts Americans at risk, it also is a violation of the Homeland Security Act itself. Despite several inquiries into your office for more information, I have yet to receive sufficient explanation for these actions. I also have serious concerns about this administration's inappropriate use of the U.S. military for domestic immigration enforcement and the outrageous use of taxpayer dollars, which I will be asking questions about, for detention at Guantanamo Bay. Certainly anyone concerned about prudent use of taxpayer money should be outraged by what's happening down there. Our nation faces a multitude of Homeland Security challenges, and this committee has always been willing to work to address them on a bipartisan basis. Secretary Noem, when we first met prior to your confirmation, you gave me a commitment that you would work with me to address the many threats facing our nation. And I hope today's hearing will be an honest discussion about the resources the department needs to do just that, and I welcome having that kind of discussion. I would hope that we would be able to have that discussion in a way that we have done in this committee in a bipartisan way for as long as I can remember, where our first round would be 7 minutes, and then a second round would be 5 minutes. Certainly, Chairman Paul, I would hope you would consider the precedent that I've always known. When Senator Johnson was chair of the committee, he always made sure that everybody had 7 minutes. Certainly, Homeland Security is a primary concern for you, Madam Secretary, and for all of us. And I'm not sure why the chair is insisting on 5 minutes. I know you're fully capable of answering for 7 minutes, and you shouldn't be concerned about it, but apparently the chairman is concerned about that extra time. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd hope we'd get 7 minutes on the first round and then 5, as we always have, as long as this committee has been in existence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The confrontation between Senator Gary Peters and Sec. Kristi Noem wasn't just a critique of bureaucratic choices, it was a warning. A serious, fact-driven warning that the Trump administration's handling of DHS. Peters begins by reminding us of something we too often take for granted. The Department of Homeland Security isn't a political tool. It's the backbone of America's safety. It prevents terrorism. It shields us from cyber attacks. It protects our borders and helps rebuild communities after natural disasters. These are not abstract missions. They're what stand between order and chaos when America is tested. And yet, under the Trump administration, the department appears to have lost sight of that. Peters points out that the hearing is happening without a detailed budget request. No clear plan, no transparency, no roadmap. Think about that. The nation's primary security agency operating on improvisation and political whim rather than structured oversight and accountability. From there, Peters methodically lays out a disturbing list of decisions, each one chipping away at DHS's ability to do its job. FEMA, for instance, is supposed to be the country's first responder when disaster strikes. But critical programs for flood mitigation have been halted, staff reduced, and resources slashed. And all this as hurricane and wildfire seasons approach. When FEMA's own internal reports admit they're not ready for what's coming, it's not just mismanagement, it's negligence. Peters connects those dots with precision. These cuts aren't saving money, they're putting lives at risk. They're shifting the burden to state and local governments that simply can't fill the void left by a weakened federal response. Then there's the cyber front. The administration's decision to gut the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, is not only short-sighted, it's dangerous. At a time when cyber attacks threaten hospitals, elections, energy grids, and national defense, Peters reveals that hundreds of CISA employees have been pressured into resigning. The agency's advisory committees have been dismantled. Its election security work has stopped cold. In other words, the guardrails that protect our democracy from digital warfare are being ripped away. And for what? Political optics? Ideological spite? It's not reform, it's sabotage. And the story doesn't stop there. Peters calls out proposed cuts to the Transportation Security Administration. $247 million slashed, fewer TSA agents, longer lines, weaker airport security. This isn't theoretical. Every traveler in America will feel this. Every flight becomes a little less secure, every checkpoint a little more strained. But perhaps most alarming is Peters' next point. The deliberate dismantling of DHS offices designed to protect civil rights and civil liberties. These offices were created for one crucial reason: to ensure that, in protecting America, we don't violate the very freedoms that define America. Shutting them down doesn't just break with democratic norms. Peters makes clear it violates the Homeland Security Act itself. That's not political language, that's legal language. To put it plainly, the administration isn't just making poor policy, it's acting outside the law. Peters is careful not to make this partisan. He reminds the room that this committee has historically been bipartisan, united around the shared goal of keeping America safe. But his disappointment is palpable, because what he's seeing from the Trump-era DHS isn't cooperation, it's confrontation. Not transparency, but secrecy. Not preparation, but politics. He even highlights the absurdity of the administration using U.S. military resources for domestic immigration enforcement, a move that blurs constitutional lines between civilian and military authority. Add to that the use of taxpayer dollars to detain immigrants at Guantanamo Bay, a site synonymous with human rights abuses, and you start to see a troubling pattern. A government using the tools of security not for protection but for punishment and power projection. When Peters invokes the law, the Homeland Security Act, he's drawing a line in the sand. Because that act wasn't designed for political convenience. It was built to protect Americans from both external threats and internal overreach. Violating it isn't just bureaucratic misconduct, it's a direct assault on democratic accountability. In the end, Peters' message is both sobering and deeply patriotic. He's not simply challenging Kristi Noem or the Trump administration. He's defending the principle that national security and the rule of law are inseparable. You cannot claim to protect the nation while undermining its institutions. You cannot say you value freedom while silencing the offices that defend it.